Cameron Smith, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, fellas. How are we?
We are. We're good. There's been plenty to talk about. Obviously, our listeners up here are very Broncos-driven, and I know you want to talk about Nelson, you want to talk about grand finals, and we will talk about that, but the Broncos sort of confirming now that they'll have a press conference at Red Hill at 10 o'clock with the CEO and their brand-new coach, Madge Maguire. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, big announcement. It's the announcement I think that everyone's sort of been waiting for, though, isn't it? Like it hasn't been a well-kept secret at all that Michael Maguire has been on the radar for the Broncos as a replacement for Kevy. And there's even word getting around that he was sought out before the announcement of Kevy leaving the Brisbane Broncos, which, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, because this has happened so quickly, I'm pretty sure there were discussions or conversations with Michael Maguire prior to Kevy getting the punt only a few days ago. So, look, they've gone after their man that they think that can turn the place around and put them in a position where they can play consistently in finals football.
Hey, do you reckon that's that big a task, Smithy, like that Madge has got in rectifying this? Keep them fit, roll them out.
Well, it's a big job because if you look at their list and their squad, like it's one of the best lineups in the entire competition. So for them to fail the way they did this year, it's pretty surprising. And like my comments around Kevy and his job moving forward, when the regular season finished this year, was that I actually thought that he should have been given another 12 months. Because he had a fair bit going on this year with injuries and all that sort of stuff. And I'm not saying that they're the only club that suffered injuries this year. Like the two teams playing in the grand final this year, they dealt with injuries. But I just would have thought, given how well they went last year, and boys, think back 12 months ago, right, where Broncos were preparing for a grand final against Penrith, and a lot of people had them as the red-hot favourites to win that. How many pats on the back was Kevy getting?
Yes.
Like he would have been that his back would have been that sore. He was getting that many pats on the back like this time last year, and talking about what a great job he's done, and like you've put the Broncos back where they need to be on top of the ladder, and we're a force again. And then just it's been a challenging season. There's no doubt about that for the Broncos in 2024. I just thought that he would have been given another opportunity next year to get him back on track and get him going again. What we've heard is that they've had this internal review and all of these anonymous sort of evaluations of Kevy and what the club's all about. And I don't know whether they made the decision off the back of that. There's talk around that they sort of went in there already with the view that Kevy wasn't the right guy, but clearly the thinking process of the administration of the Broncos is that Kev wasn't the right person, and now they think Michael Maguire is.
Yeah, well, you make it so hard for everyone, mate. You Melbourne Storm types. Like you're in a grand final every second year and a final every year.
Yeah.
Like, what standards? How good are you?
Well, it's a fair effort, isn't it? It's a fair effort, and I think everyone involved with the Melbourne Storm have to really have a lot to owe Craig Bellamy. He's the guy that's been there since the start of 2003 and created this this juggernaut of a footy club where don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from the efforts of all the players that have been involved in that time and the administration, because they play their part as well. But the one common denominator is Craig Bellamy. He's the guy that's been there from that beginning all the way up to now, and he just has this ability to have his team and his players as individuals prepared to the best of their ability every single season. Yep. Every single season to give himself a shot at being involved in this game.
All right, well, we'll leave this in a minute, but one of his assistants was obviously Madge Maguire. So you've had dealings with him on when I say an intimate basis, inside the four walls basis. What are your thoughts?
Well, during that time, like that was obviously fairly early on in his coaching career for Madge, and he was an assistant for several seasons with us at the Storm, and it was a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde sort of setup, right? He was good cop compared to Craig being bad cop, and and so he was. I've said this a couple of times on radio, fellas. That they're completely different people, right? When you have an individual as an assistant coach, they're relaxed, they're happy, they're smiling, they're putting arms around players, they're picking them up and encouraging them. Whereas the head coach, when they turn into head coaches, they're completely different. Now, I didn't see a lot of that the West Tigers doco that they did, but did you see Madge's head coach there?
Yes.
There wasn't a lot of smiling and hugging and all this sort of stuff like he did at the Melbourne Storm. But
The hell are you doing?
I'll tell you, the one thing that I seen about Madge in his time with Melbourne was that like he's very very well prepared. With all of his planning around his training sessions and exactly where he wants his team to go. His vision for how the team should be playing and where they need to be from start to end, and he drives standards. And that's been a bit of the talk, hasn't it, about the Broncos over the last 12 months? Is that the area where they slipped?
Mm. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we'll move on. I mean, you've said your piece on it. I mean, my thoughts are that Kevy's papers were marked a while ago.
Yep.
And whatever came out of the review as to what extent the review was, but there's a few there that need to answer questions, and I don't think the players have given him much assistance either. No. But we move on, mate. And we've got a grand final to play, and they're going to have to play it without Nelson Asofa-Solomona.
Yeah, big news overnight, isn't it? Where Big Nelson, he went up to Sydney and he fought that charge. He was searching for a downgrade, so the grading was a grade 3, and subsequently meant 4 weeks. He wanted the downgrade. Well, he needed the double downgrade, so he needed to go from 3 to 2, 2 to 1, to actually have an opportunity to play this weekend, and was unsuccessful. The judiciary, I think it was a Bobby Lidner and Paul Simpkins, I believe, were the 2 panel members. They've looked at all the evidence and listened to the arguments and said, well, look, we feel as though that there was an opportunity not to tackle Lindsay Collins where you tackled him, and he's ended up with 5 weeks. So big blow for the Storm. Look, the most important thing for Melbourne now is that, look, this is a untimely, unfortunate distraction for them, but in some ways they need to put it to bed today. So I'm not too sure what their week looked like, whether they're at training today or whatnot, but Nelson would have travelled back last night. I think it's important to get him in today and have him or just address the situation with him in the room with the entire squad, because he will be replaced by, we're hearing either, is it Joe Chan or Lazarus Vaalepu? One of those 2 boys will come in to fill that void left by Nelson Asofa-Solomona. But what they got to do, boys, is as hurtful and as upsetting as it is to have one of your teammates suspended for a grand final, you really got to try your very best to put that to bed and move on with your preparation.
Right, well, put us in his shoes, mate, because you missed the grand final, didn't you?
Yeah, missed the grand final 2008 when we took on the Manly Sea Eagles. Missed the prelim as well, the previous game against the Sharkies, so I got 2 matches. But, look, it's really difficult given that you're physically able to be out there. You know what I mean? Like it's not an injury that's holding you back from playing in that game. It's a suspension, and you're sort of told, look, you're out, you can't play, you're banned. So, look, he'll be feeling a whole range of emotions, and for me, I guess I had a little bit more time to prepare for it, right? Because I missed the game before the grand final. I travelled up and watched the boys play against Cronulla that night in Sydney, and they had a strong victory, 24-0. So I sort of had a week's preparation to get my head around, well, okay, if the boys progress through this prelim, there's going to be a grand final that I won't be playing in. Whereas this has all happened very quickly. Nelson went up to Sydney with hopes of having that downgraded, and now that's been dashed. So, there'll be disappointment. He'll be extremely upset. A lot of the thoughts that he'll be thinking, and this is the way I was thinking, was, well, is that my last opportunity? Is that my last opportunity to play in a grand final? and will I ever get another chance?
Yeah.
And you just don't know, guys. Even though Paddy, like we just spoke about how good the Storm have been, and Heal said, every second year it seems as though Melbourne Storm's playing in a grand final. You just don't know what the future holds as an athlete.
You've played in every decider since 2016. Can you believe that? Other than 2019.
19, yeah.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Let's listen to Nelson after the judiciary finding.
Obviously very disappointed with the result, but had a fair hearing. All my energy is going to go towards my team to get the result. So there you guys.
And that's a great attitude to have, isn't it? Because that's now you got to shift your focus from I'm not preparing as a player to play in this grand final. I'm now preparing. What I am preparing to do is help my teammates be in the best possible position to go out there and beat this Penrith side. So he'll have a role to play. He'll be given a role to play this week. It's not like you're suspended and you don't come to training for the rest of the week. He'll have a role at training where he may replicate, having
Fisher
the role
Harris.
of like a Fisher Harris or a Moses Liotta, where the players or the forward pack have to defend him at training, and they get their repetitions and practice through that. So, at the end of the day, he's unable to play this weekend, but he's still a member of the squad, and we see 17 players run out, right, and the 18th man on the side of the field. That's what we see game day, but. To be able to win a premiership, it takes more than just that. It takes that entire squad, and particularly, more importantly than any other week, it's this week, and I've learnt from experience where you need every single member of your squad on board and having that, whoever's picked to play in that grand final, having them best prepared to go out and play their best footy against Penrith.
Yeah. All right. It's 8:16. I'll just leave you with this. I mean, will this have any to do with the thinking of who they select to replace Big Nelson? Because I know the 7-gamer Lazarus Avalupu played with the Sunshine Coast Falcons. When he made his debut, Cameron, he needed 30 tickets for family and friends. Who decides that at the Storm? Does Frank Panisi have the final say?
Well, I think Frank actually takes a wide berth from the ticket allocation this week because it's a nightmare. He stays well and truly out of that. But I could only imagine how many tickets are being requested right now. So. Look, I don't know. If you're thinking like for like, you're probably thinking Craig's going to go for Lazarus. Yeah. Because Joe Chan's more, he plays a bit more back row. Can play in the middle, but he plays a bit more back row. So I reckon Lazarus, well, he may just get the nod. What,
in the lead up, in your conversations, in your experience, will Cleary's shoulder have at Melbourne?
There's no doubt they'll have some plans around, trying to get some traffic towards him and get his tackle count up a little bit. But I don't think that'll be their entire focus of their game plan. Like they've played against some quality opposition in the final series where they haven't really gone out and targeted any one particular player. They've just gone about their game plan and that works. That picks apart opposition defences, and I think they'll fancy their chances against Penrith to try and get some inroads and some quicker play the balls, because that's the way they love to play, right? Spoke about that last week when they took on the Roosters, where the biggest thing for the Roosters was that if they could control the play the ball speed of the Melbourne Storm, then they're half a chance. But they were good early, and it helped having Asofa-Solomona in the bin, where they had an extra man for the first 10 minutes. They were able to score 6 points. They got a penalty goal, and then they scored a try. But once Nelson got back on and Melbourne sort of clicked into gear, they were just no chance. So, do I think they're going to go out of their way to try and find Cleary and chase him down a little bit? I don't think so. If he's in the vicinity, no doubt he'll be getting some traffic his way. And he's got who will he have? He'll have Sean Bloor running at him, edge back row, who's big and powerful and had a pretty good season. And I think if they can send some middlemen his way too, they will. Maybe. And if you look at the grand final last year too, boys, like there were some defensive issues on Nathan's side. where Brisbane really got some opportunities, to make some line breaks. I know Ezra Mam sort of tore him to shreds there, particularly earlier in the game. But Melbourne will have a plan. It won't be centred around trying to get to Nathan Cleary. Nathan showed last week, like he's a tough customer.
Yep.
He is a tough customer. Like he had a dislocated or sublux shoulder, and he rehabbed that and come back, and he's obviously got some strength back in it, because if it's not half decent to play footy, then you're not out there, particularly in a game like this. It's too risky. But there's certainly be some discomfort for him. But look, he as I said, like he's mentally tough, he's physically tough. I don't think he's going to shirk the responsibility of standing in front of some ball carriers from Melbourne.
So much to cope with for him. Like to be cautious with that shoulder. Don't go too close to the line as you're passing the ball, and be confident as normal. There's so much that will be going on in his head. We just hope, I'd say, Cam, you'd be the same, that a bunker doesn't decide anything.
Oh, goodness me, boys. Yeah, I hope not. I really hope not. And particularly, Ivan Cleary come out after his game on the weekend where they disallowed that that try where Talakai made the decision to come in on a short runner. And I hope that doesn't happen, Heels. I really don't. I really hope that the players decide this one and no official sort of ruling does. You just don't want it in these games. And you heard Ivan say in his post-match press conference that it gives him a little bit of anxiety thinking about it.
Yeah.
And the ruling that happened that night. And as a result, Graham Ensley come out, was it yesterday, and said, look, that in my opinion, that should have been awarded. The bunker official sort of, he had the wrong interpretation of that and needs to be better. I don't know why Adam G is not having some part in this final series. Like, he refereed the grand final last year, was praised for it. Like, we've spoken about this, fellas. What if he's not refereeing the grand final out in the ground? Okay, that's fair enough. Why would you not have him in the bunker?
Yep, exactly right.
I don't get it.
Well, hopefully that happens this weekend. The two spines, it's been the most talked about, but I tell you what, it's just for a fan, it's just so mouthwatering, isn't it? Pappenhausen, Munster, Hughes and Grant, Edwards, Luai, Cleary, and Mitch.
Yep, the matchups in the 7-6-1 in particular are the good ones, right? So Dylan Edwards playing for New South Wales now. He's a State of Origin player. Many are tipping him, barring injury, to take that number 1 jersey for the Kangaroos. Ryan Pappenhausen, he's back and playing as good as ever. He's probably lost half a yard of pace compared to what he had maybe a couple of years ago, but he's as influential as ever with that number 1 jersey. Then you go to the 7 and 6. Nathan Cleary, many regard him as the best player in the game at the moment, along with Jerome Luai, who's had probably one of the best seasons of his career, particularly with Nathan being out for long periods of time this year, where he had to put that number 7 jersey on and really run the side. Then you look at the opposition. Jerome Hughes, he's going to be the Dally M medalist tomorrow. Surely he has to be. Then you throw Cam Munster in. A guy that can really, if this game's really close, he could get the ball and just break it wide open with one single play. That's not a part of the game plan. He could just do it off his own back. And then the number 9s, well, they're just they're always at you, aren't they? Harry Grant's renowned for his running game. He hasn't run as often in this final series, which, you know what, boys, in a way, I think has benefited the Melbourne Storm.
Righto.
I think he's picked his times well to run the football. He hasn't overplayed his hand at all. I think it's been a wonderful final series by Harry. He's everywhere in defence. He makes his tackles when they're running straight at him. He's out there covering out wide if there looks like there's going to be a half break. But with the footy, I think he's played a really patient and smart style in the final series, and it's helped Hughes and Munster and Pappenhausen do their thing. So be interesting to see how he goes about this week and how he's going to play, whether he'll go out for an early dart and put him on notice a little bit. But yeah, look, that 1, 6, 7, 9 matchups for both sides, incredible. And it's a big reason why, Penrith have played 5 consecutive grand finals and why Melbourne have always been up around that sort of, top 2, top 4 position is because of their spine players.
Oh, there's so much to look forward to, mate. Rooster fan Murray has said, Cam, I noticed Storm's set play up of staggered positioning and spacings when attacking to almost manipulate the opposition's response. A glaring example was the inside balls exposing Keary and Crichton.
Yeah.
Bellamy, the chess master.
Yeah, well, they sit down and break down the opposition defence, right? And they sit down with the spine and they come up with these little set plays and different variations on the outside. So when you see them pick apart, like that space that Murray's talking about around Angus Crichton and Luke Keary, that was the Storm scored 4 times in that area.
Righto.
So they've obviously sat down during the week and seen that area as an opportunity or a place to get some opportunities to score points, or if not score points, cause some real damage to their defensive line. And the way they did that was through that staggered spacing of players and second man play and sweeping runs out the back by Pappenhausen, using their speed. They love their right side using speed, right? Because they got Hughes, he's one of the quickest halves in the game. Then you've got Pappenhausen, and once you use those 2 guys running those sweeping lines, it puts that back rower under a whole heap of pressure to fill that space. So they come up with tries in various ways, right, where they drop players off, they turn balls back inside. Pappenhausen just burnt Crichton with sheer speed on one occasion. So I reckon that might be something similar that they bring to the game this week.
Okay. All right. Just a quick one. Dally M. Who's your pick?
Dally M, Hughes. Yeah, Jerome Hughes. I think he has to get it. If he doesn't, boys, I reckon we need to sit down and have a look at this voting system. He's been clearly the best player. Clearly.
Yeah. And you're obviously tipping your Storm.
Yeah, I got Storm. by 4. It'll be a close one. Something around the mark of maybe 22-18.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, mate. Great to chat and pick your brain. It never stops giving league, does it? There's always a headline.
There's always something. How good.
Have a good week, mate.
Good on you, fellas. Catch ya.
Enjoy the week. Cameron Smith joining us here. It's 8:30.